Hello again, I'm Dr. Craig Childress, a clinical psychologist in Pasadena, California. I work with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, angry oppositional children, parent-child relationship problems, marital problems, things like that. In this particular video series, I am talking about a particular type of parent-child relationship problems that I refer to as a parental alienation dynamic. And in this particular video segment, I'm going to be discussing the alienation narrative and the child's role in creating that narrative in the service of the narcissistically organized personality disorder of the alienating parent. Now, in previous discussions, in previous segments, I spoke about how I interview first the targeted parent and get to sort of their background. And in that interview, I begin to hear the family systems process of child triangulation in the marital conflict, allied with one parent, and possibly the enmeshed psychological relationship with that parent. But at the very least, through the targeted parent, I'm beginning to suspect the triangulation and alliance feature. And I might also begin to hear the beginnings of that splitting dynamic that would be suggestive of a borderline personality disorder process somewhere within the family system. Then when I interview the child, I begin to, from a differential diagnostic perspective, continue to collect confirming or disconfirming evidence. And the evidence I get from the child tends to confirm the triangulation alliance, and also the beginning to get evidence of the enmeshed psychological relationship with the alienating parent. The child just over-idealizes that parent and is absolutely hateful towards the targeted parent. And in that process of wonderful idealized parent and horrible hated parent, and oftentimes the child will use the word "I hate that parent," is the beginnings of that splitting dynamic. And so when I hear the potential for that splitting of all good and all wonderful, I'm then beginning to look for a personality disorder. And given the nature of this type of family dynamic, I'm looking for a narcissistically organized personality disorder with borderline features and potentially either, depending on how you conceptualize it, paranoid personality features or a persecutory delusional disorder. And so then I interview the allied parent, and I get that narcissistic presentation of I'm all the wonderful parent, and the other parent is inadequate and horrible. And if I try to challenge that and say, well, I'm seeing the child as actually being the problem here, the narcissistically organized parent just denies it and will avoid identifying as the child as having any problem, and the child presents no behavior problems with the narcissistic parent. So now let me discuss how that functions within the necessary narrative for the narcissistically organized parent. At the seed core of narcissism is a fundamental sense of self-inadequacy. And the narcissistic self-inflation is a defensive process against this tremendous, tremendous sense of inadequacy. And what happens in this alienation dynamic, because the child is in a meshed relationship with this parent, the child expresses this narcissistically organized personality disorder through the narrative, through the actions of the child. And the child's actions construct this narrative of the targeted parent as being inadequate and abusive, and the alienating parent as being wonderful and a superlative parent. And so when the child rejects the targeted parent, the child's rejection defines the targeted parent as a bad parent. Why else would the child reject this parent if it wasn't that the parent was so bad? Now, if the clinician, if the mental health clinician accepts this presentation, they are colluding with the personality disorder and the alienation dynamic that is being created here. They are absolutely missing the relationship processes involved. That's what the child and the alienating parent want us to believe. They are creating the rejection in order to define the targeted parent as an inadequate, abusive person. In addition, the child's all wonderful behavior with the allied parent, the alienating parent, defines that parent as the all wonderful, terrific, great parent, which serves the narcissistic inflation of that alienating parent's narcissistically organized personality disorder. And so the child's behavior is defining each of the parents within that splitting dynamic. And that definition of the parents serves the narcissism of the alienating parent. That I am the all-wonderful parent, and that core sense of inadequacy is then projected onto the targeted parent, where the alienating parent can then reject it in the guise of the targeted parent. You're the inadequate one, not me. I'm all wonderful. You're the inadequate one. In addition, the borderline processes, that fear of abandonment, which serves as a core of a borderline personality disorder, is being expressed through the child's rejection of the targeted parent. In terms of from the perspective of the narcissistically organized alienating parent, I'm not being rejected, I'm being adored. You're the one that's being abandoned, not me. And the fear of the narcissistically organized alienating parent is that someone, somewhere, somehow will recognize that they are an inadequate person. They are bad. They're not okay. And once we recognize that, we're going to leave them. And so they get this narcissistic inflation. I'm all wonderful. The child's never going to leave me. They adore me. I'm the wonderful parent. It's the other parent that is being abandoned. So again, it's that projection of that abandonment fear. It's the projection of that inadequacy onto the targeted parent. If as a clinician you miss this, that's a serious, serious diagnostic failure on your part. How can you possibly miss such a flamboyant display of a personality disorder? The only potential reason is you don't know what you're doing. Okay? You should begin to recognize the structural family systems process of triangulation, alienation, and as you begin to explore that, you should recognize the seeds of the splitting. And as you recognize the seeds of the splitting and begin to explore for a personality disorder, you should be able to recognize the narcissistic organization and the borderline organization to the relationship patterns, and recognize this alienation narrative that the child's behavior is defining. And one of the key elements in recognizing this is looking at the authenticity of that child's definition of the targeted parent. And I'll discuss that in the next video segment.